Hey guys, so we're moving on now to game number 3 with our Hexproof deck. Opening hand is good, not great, and you'll see I make a bit of a misplay here. We do have 4 lands, we have 2 of the boggles, and even better, we have these lands, our fetch lands, so we can get this 1 white mana that we need for this Armadillo Cloak. And if you play this out properly, you could get this going on turn 3. Now, here's how you should start this. Turn 1, Evolving Wilds, fetching, or Terramorphic, either way, fetching out a forest. Turn 2, you would play a boggle and another fetch land to get the plains that you need. Then turn 3, you would have the mana available and untapped to put out the cloak onto the boggle. That's how it should be done. Keep that in mind. We'll see how I actually do it. Definitely not the right way. So I'm going to Terramorphic on the first turn, and I fetch out the plains. Excellent. This is exactly what I do not need to do, because this means that I cannot get a boggle into play on turn 2 unless I actually play a forest, and if I play the forest, that means I will not be able to get cloak into play until turn 4. So don't get caught up in the fact that there's a cloak in your hand. Just do as I say, not as I do, I guess. So boggle's gonna come down, and then like I said, I'm going to be able to just mostly I have to hope for a top deck into an untapped land in order to get an Armadillo Cloak into play on turn 3. I do not find it, so I am going to be forced to use Evolving Wilds. Will not get Cloak until the next turn, but I will attack through with the boggle. My opponent has put out a Benevolent Bodyguard, and this is going to cause a little bit of trouble. It can cause all kinds of issues when you're dealing with the only way that he's going to be able to kill your creatures because of Hexproof is through combat. So when he gets protection from colors, all of a sudden you're going to have some troubles. So what I decided to do first is attack through with the boggle. I don't have an ability to make any play here except for playing my second boggle. So if you wanted to trade these, then I'm still not in bad shape. It's just going to come down to the fact that maybe, I would have, it's going to work out to be that I only had one boggle because the other one's going to be dead, and it's going to just kind of reset the board state. If he didn't decide to block, then I would be no worse off. I would put the second boggle into play and still get my turn 4 enchantment going. So now he's going to make his second play here. Another great card that I love that is, I think, underused, and I've been trying to find the right deck for it, is this Yearling. 2/2 Vigilance Haste, absolutely fantastic, but more trouble comes down in the form of a second Bodyguard. So the Yearling is going to come through and hit me for 2. I am going to start out here with the Armadillo Cloak. I know he's got a lot of options here as far as damage, and when you do this, we're going to run into, with red and white, some kind of landfall deck, using the GOP and the links and stuff like that. So I wanted to get this life gain going as soon as possible. Terramorphic is going to come down because it's going to be tapped and I have no other play this turn. But you notice I am not going to attack. Had I attacked through, my opponent, if he was smart at least, would have been able to block with both these creatures and would have traded, and then I would have been in bad shape because that was my only creature available. So definitely smart play here is not to attack through that, and just keep those kind of things in mind. Bone Splitter comes down, and then second Bone Splitter comes down. Definitely going to be trouble with that and the Bodyguard. So he equips the first Bone Splitter, attacks with the Yearling, and the best part of this is this Vigilance and what he's got set up here. And this is something I've played with myself. Not always with as much success as he's having here, but the fact that he can attack through for 4, I'm not going to block because I want to keep the boggle alive, and I still have to get through that 4/2 creature with the possible protection. So lands are going to come down. I have the option here to play 2 enchantments. It's going to come down to a Cloak or the Ancestral Mask, and I'm going to go with the Mask here because it's going to make this boggle just the biggest, the fastest. Giving it +2/+2 for each other enchantment on the battlefield, which is absolutely fantastic. It's going to get even bigger when I put down this Briar Shield, make it an 8/8, and this allows me to attack through. If my opponent did decide to block here, he would just be chump blocking. He would not find himself in position to kind of trade with me. But that's definitely going to get a little more changed as he attaches the second Bone Splitter to that Yearling. It's going to turn it into a 6/2 with possible protection, and that may cause me issues later on. Like I said, I went with that because it's gonna make it bigger through that Ancestral Mask than if I had put down this Armadillo Cloak. Second Armadillo Cloak, I would have been able to attack through with plenty of room to get around these two blockers at the same time. But, it would still be something that I would run into troubles later on. I think, either way, it's going to be kind of a trade-off. It's not really a bad move for either enchantment to come into play right there, since you will, you're not going to run into a counterspell in red and white, so he's not going to have an answer for it. So second Bone Splitter gets attached, and third Bone Splitter comes into play. Now he makes an interesting move here. If you look, he plays the second Bone Splitter, then goes into combat and attacks for 6. Now, he has 3 mana available to him, and that tells me that he has a Prismatic Strands in hand, and this is just without question. You play enough Pauper, you get familiar with the cards, and you can kind of guess really well at what an opponent has. If he doesn't use this 1 mana, then he is basically telling you, it goes to playing poker, and people have tells. So by him not equipping the Bone Splitter to this Yearling and attacking for 8, it straight up tells me that he has in hand a Prismatic Strands that he's going to use to prevent damage. You look at that and you're like, he's got 3 mana available to him. He's not able to target my creature. It's got to be Strands or something along those lines that he has, and so there's nothing to do here but attack into it. I am going to put down the Ledgewalker, and I decided to put my cloak onto him. Kind of split up the damage here. Having 2 cloaks on 1 creature is great and all, but like I said, I know he has a Prismatic Strands that he's going to play here, preventing this damage, which means that it would leave me with this 1/1 Ledgewalker to block. Right now I've put my Ledgewalker in a position where he can he would be able to chump block the Yearling and trade. I know it's not going to happen that way because of the bodyguard, but at the very least it's going to sacrifice the Ledgewalker in order to get rid of this bodyguard. And my opponent's actually put himself in a pretty good position because of this Prismatic Strands. It works fantastic, and this is something I may steal later on for my revisit of the Yearling deck. The fact that this Yearling has Vigilance not only means that he can attack me every turn and block with this giant creature, but he has this flashback under control because it does count as a white creature, so he can tap that to flashback Prismatic Strands on his next turn. So I know right now that I have to deal with yet another turn where he is going to be able to prevent all damage from me. So finally equips his Bone Splitter and attacks for 8. And like I said, I'm going to block here with the Ledgewalker. He is now forced into a position where he would have to use the bodyguard to keep this Yearling alive and kill off my Ledgewalker. Which he does make this move here. If he decided not to, it would definitely be a wrong move. The Yearling would die, and I would go up 3 life. Life gain isn't really the important part. The part that would be important would be the fact that the Yearling was dead. But it's something that I had to get rid of this bodyguard. The only way you're going to be able to do it, you're in a green deck, you don't have kill spells, you don't have counter spells. Anything you do is going to have to be done through combat mechanics. So plays a Squadron Hawk, fetching out all of his Squadron Hawks. Gets those all into play. So draw into Rancor, play it onto my Boggle. And now I'm at a point in time, I know he has this Prismatic Strands in his graveyard, so I could sit here and I could not attack, but not attacking is not going to prevent him from using Strands. What I have to do is I have to attack into this. I have to force my opponent to use the Prismatic Strands from his graveyard in order to just get it off the field, get it off the board, remove that option to him. I'm at a point where I'm at 15 life, so I'm going to be able to take this 10 damage on my next turn if he decides to attack with all his creatures and not be too terrible. In too terrible a position, sorry. It is going to put me down to 10, and I am going to be reliant on getting through on some damage on this next turn. If worst case scenario is he decides to chump block with the Yearling, it's going to at the very least trample over and do some damage, and I'm going to go up some life. There's another bad situation here where he is completely untapped. He's got red mana available to him and 4 cards in hand. That just screams burn spells to me. He does actually cast a single lightning bolt to the head. Here we go. Getting me down to 2, and at this point I figured, oh, game over, he's got the burn spells. But he did show that he did not actually have that second burn. We know, because we kept this open, that 2 of these 3 cards in his hand are Squadron Hawks. So he did not have the burn spell. He was very, very close. I'm going to actually attack through on this turn. I think he still had this. No, the life gain. He was in a position where he could have dragged this out a little longer. He could have used this yearling to block the boggle. Would have taken 10 damage going down to 2, but the fact of the matter is that I'm going up 12 life, so I'm going to go up to 14. He's going to be down to 2, and there's very few ways that he would be able to turn that around at that point in time. The yearling was the only thing really keeping my boggle in check, because of its 8 attack power. So getting through this damage is going to kind of put that in check. If he blocked, it would be dead, and he would be kind of without options as far as keeping this boggle under wraps. He would have to kind of top deck into maybe another Prismatic Strands would save him out for a couple turns until he found some kind of better answer, but the whole time I would be getting additional creatures, additional enchantments, so you could probably win it still at that point in time. But he does concede. He realizes he has no answers, and this game is over. So there you go. I hope this is example game number 3. Hopefully this gives you some insights as to how to deal with stuff like these bodyguards through combat damage, and definitely how not to make the mistakes in your mana colors in the early game with those terramorphics. So definitely, if you get nothing else from these videos, look at these videos, see my mistakes, and hopefully you do not make the same.